Good morning. I'm very honoured to have been asked to provide this statement on the very important occasion of the opening of the Jean Monnet Centre of Excellence, Rebuild in Dublin City University. I would like to have been with you in person. However, I'm in Paris for my monthly Eurogroup meeting, and I'm sure that many of the same issues will be engaging my ministerial colleagues around the table over the next 2 days, as you will be discussing here in Dublin, which demonstrates the importance of our relationship with the European Union. Jean Monnet said that nothing is possible without men, nothing is lasting without institutions. So while this event marks the opening of an institution, I would like to start by thanking a number of important people, without whose influence and work this event would not be possible. My thanks to Professor Fabrini, the founding director of the DCU Brexit Institute, for this invitation to address you here today. The professor has long been an impassioned and engaged thinker and speaker on European issues, and I warmly congratulate him on his latest success. I also want to thank Professor Dara Keogh, President of Dublin City University. The campus of DCU touches on my constituency of Dublin Central and draws many of its students from the families I represent, so I'm extremely conscious of its influence, both locally and nationally, and its role as a centre of learning and academia in North Dublin, in Ireland and beyond. As President of the Eurogroup, I'm constantly reminded of the value of broadening the depth and breadth of our understanding and engagement with European issues. The work of the Brexit Institute has been invaluable in this regard, operating as a hub and a magnet for the analysis of Brexit, both from an academic and from a policy perspective. The new Jean Monnet Centre of Excellence has been aptly named Rebuild: Recovery of Europe, Budget of the Union, Integration, Law and Democracy. As a platform for engagement and exchange amongst policymakers, civil society and academia, the Centre will, I believe, be about both building and rebuilding. It will expand the role of the Brexit Institute in further developing our engagement with the European Union, exploring our understanding of the post-pandemic reconstruction of the European economy. Both these centres of excellence will provide vocal points of competence, knowledge and learning on European subjects and issues, gathering the expertise and learning of high-level experts to develop synergies between different disciplines and different resources. They'll also play a key role in reaching out to students and policymakers from faculties not typically involved with European issues, as well as beyond that with civil society, with our public. This month indeed marks the 100th anniversary of the publication of Ulysses by James Joyce, a novel that in many ways touches on our relationship with the outside world and with Europe. While Joyce was first and foremost Irish, he also strongly identified as a European. It's no accident at all that he spent his most creative years living outside Ireland, where he wrote Ulysses and his masterpieces. Ulysses is, of course, itself a masterpiece of European literature, telling the story of three characters, of Molly Bloom, Leopold Bloom and Stephen Dedalus. While it is a novel set in Dublin, these are three figures that also have distinctly European profiles and identities. At the heart of Ulysses, Joyce explores our identity, and he explores Irish identity and culture in a European framework. As we think about this anniversary, I acknowledge that it's amongst many other anniversaries of key moments in both our independence and indeed our relationship with Europe. The 100th anniversary of the establishment of Ireland as an independent state, the centenary of the founding of the Department of Finance, as well as the 50th anniversary of our signing of the Treaty of Accession to join the EEC, and the 20th anniversary of Ireland joining the Euro. There's a symmetry, I believe, in those dates, and we all know how much has happened during that span of time. We also know how much has happened in the recent history of the Euro. We remember those moments when the global financial crisis threatened its very existence, along with the social and economic stability of our nation. Many detractors questioned the viability of our future within the European project. However, what we saw was not just how this economic shock led the euro to mature and strengthen its international role, but also how the crisis had shaped our response to more recent events. The European response was criticised by some as sluggish, but it did lay the building blocks of economic governance structures which helped us react swiftly and decisively in our response to the arrival of COVID-19 to our shores. We learned valuable lessons that have stood us in good stead during our response to the coronavirus pandemic, whose borderless nature revealed both the depth of our interdependence and also reminded us of the strength of unity. When the scale of the public health crisis became evident, it was met with coordinated policy action at EU level to protect lives and livelihoods. Yes, it may have taken some time to get to that point, and yes, the early moments of it were so difficult and so challenging, but now I'd make the case to you that a crisis of unprecedented impact required an unprecedented European response, and that happened. In early 2020, the EU quickly agreed a comprehensive package of measures amounting to €540 billion. This consisted of 3 different European safety nets. Sure, the EIB Pan-European Guarantee Fund and the European Stability Mechanism Pandemic Crisis Support Instrument. In July 2020, the European Council reached agreement on a package totalling €1.82 trillion for the 2021 to 2027 multi-annual financial framework and the Next Generation EU Recovery Fund. The overall package, and in particular the historic €750 billion Recovery Fund, were all key tools in our shared European response to the severe health and economic crisis caused by the pandemic. While Next Generation EU aims to deliver a more sustainable, more digitalised and more resilient Europe, at its heart is the Recovery and Resilience Facility. It provides grants and loans to EU countries for programmes of strategic reform and investment to address common economic, social and infrastructure needs. When the European Commission issued the first Next Generation EU Green Bond and raised €12 billion to be used exclusively for green and sustainable investment across the EU, it represented the world's largest green bond issuance ever. However, as important as this was our ability ultimately to deliver all of this on the basis of compromise, something that has enormous political value. It is fair to say that this pandemic tested the solidity, the solidarity, the effectiveness of the modern European system, but I'd also make the case that Europe rose to the challenge. In contrast to the crisis of a decade ago, we took decisive action to soften the blow of the immediate economic and health crisis and minimise the short-term consequences of the crisis for workers, for businesses and for member states. Millions of lives and millions of livelihoods were protected by these actions. They strengthened the bond between the European public and the European body politic. For me, our shared European response to this pandemic underpins the contemporary rationale for the European Union. We achieve more if we act collectively. We know this is the case here in Ireland, but I also believe it's acknowledged more and more across Europe too. Our citizens can see the immense practical value in the power of solidarity and in the consequences of cooperation. As Minister for Finance for Ireland and as President of the Eurogroup, I have been privileged, to be involved in and to witness the European response to the pandemic. And while we cannot yet say that the pandemic is fully behind us, we are seeing some very positive indicators of recovery. If you look at the economic performance of the euro area, output is back to where it was at its pre-pandemic level, with annual growth of over 5%. Euro area unemployment has now reached a low of 7%. However, if this pandemic has taught us anything, it is the need to acknowledge uncertainty and uncertainty associated with changing health and economic conditions. So this is why the Eurogroup has agreed on a moderately supportive fiscal stance for next year. We also acknowledge the emergence of inflation as a risk to our recovery. Monetary policy is, of course, the role and the remit of the ECB, but the effect of higher prices and growth and on the purchasing power of those we represent is something we all recognise to be a cause of concern. As we look to the future, we have much ahead of us then. We have much to achieve in terms of our continuing work on banking union and reaching a successful outcome of the economic governance review. Our first discussion on economic governance in a very substantive way took place in November. We repeated this again in January when we considered the process around draft budgetary plans and macroeconomic surveillance procedures. Over the next couple of months, we'll continue to debate aspects of this framework as the Commission develops their proposals. At our March Eurogroup meeting, we'll discuss the right budgetary policy for the euro area for 2023. We have to find the right balance between debt sustainability and funding growth and funding investment. We'd also, at this point, continue with our work with regard to banking union, which is a critical part of our economic and monetary union, which we still need to build upon. An enormous amount of work has happened. We have made good progress. We've achieved much with an agreement on ESM reform in November 2020. This was an important milestone. At the December 2021 Euro Summit, our leaders again mandated the Eurogroup to finalise a work plan for the completion of banking union. And I am committed to fulfilling this mandate. I intend to present a balanced proposal to colleagues in the coming weeks. In considering how best to take this proposal forward, we must consider the sizable cost of inaction on banking union at this point, the signal it could send to investors, but also the risks of postponing progress until the next moment of challenge. There is now a window of opportunity. There's a shared commitment amongst member states to this project. and it's important that we build on what we've already achieved in order to make more progress on this part of our union. While I'm aware of the difficulties and political sensitivities in this project, I'm also optimistic that we can make progress. And this will be an important priority of mine in the coming months. The next 2 days will see many eminent and respected experts consider issues dealing with many of these topics. Next Generation EU, the Recovery and Resilience Fund, how it affects European Monetary Union and Banking Union, the governance structures behind it, and other important topics. So I look forward to hearing the outcome of these debates, and I look forward to hearing more about the conversations that will take place amongst you all in the coming hours and day. As you do this, we should remember that the future, our future, is made one step at a time. We must look at the past and the present with clear-eyed realism if we are to make a better future a reality. And engagements like this conference in forums such as Rebuild are a key part in developing this understanding amongst policymakers, academia, and the public who we serve. The Irish language is a rich and historical language that has been our native tongue for thousands of years. It's now a full working language of the European Union. So, Fiar lum Creacanis le Cúpla Seanachal Oscuelga, Ska Akela of Wurin Nadina. Under the shelter of each other, people survive. We have achieved much more than those who laid the foundations of the European community, leaders like Jean Monnet, could have envisioned. We stand better prepared as an economic community than we were a decade ago to face the trials ahead, to grasp the opportunities that await. And political and community solidarity that has helped us get to this point will allow us to reach for a different and better future. So we must continue to reflect on and engage with what lies ahead. And to this end, I wish you all, Professor Fabrini, and all of the participants in your conference, an enjoyable and a productive event, and every future success for your centre, which I look forward to visiting soon. Thank you.